Hello there, welcome to Season 3 of the Coming Down to Earth with Spirit podcast with me, your host, David Hale. In this season, we'll continue talking about all things to do with mediumship, the spiritual world, but also answering your questions to help you on your own spiritual journey or mediumship development. In this new season, I'll also be introducing some new horoscope readings done month by month per star sign, so do keep your ears out for those. But without further ado, let's get into this episode and I'll see you on the other side. Well, hello there, you lovely lot. I hope you're doing fabulously well. And as always, thank you very much for tuning into the podcast and into this new episode. And this new episode has come about because I received an email from one of my very loyal followers. She's been following me for a long time and also following the podcast as well. And that is Karen Jones. Hello, Karen Jones. If you're listening, hopefully you are. And Karen has asked about karma, has asked my opinion on it. Is karma real? So before I get into my thoughts on it, it is just that, my thoughts and opinions. I'm certainly not an authority on karma. I haven't studied it, but I guess it's something that we all experience rather than something we study, if that makes sense. So, as always, in these episodes, I'm just going to give my viewpoint on it and my opinion on it. Doesn't mean I'm right or wrong. It's just, again, an interesting topic just to talk about, which I've not talked about before. And then, obviously, you guys can make your own minds up at the end of it, I suppose. But we'll see. And also, actually, before I get into my thoughts on it, I did put a poll up on my Facebook page asking all your guys' opinions on whether you believe karma is real. And the results, the majority of people believe that karma is real. So the options I gave was absolutely yes, hell no, and I'm not sure, but I hope it is real. So we had a whopping 86% of you said absolutely yes, you do believe that karma is real. You had 1% saying hell no, and then you had 13% saying I'm not sure, but I hope it is. So I think the results there speak for itself, that most of you, the majority of you, do believe that karma is real. Now, my experience with karma, what can I say? Well, the first little silly story I'll give you is the song Karma Chameleon, which was released in 1983 by the boy band Culture Club. And my mum has told me many a story of me as a baby. I was born a year before that song came out. But as a little baby, I didn't like getting dressed. And so in order to calm me down and to allow her to dress me in the mornings, if she put Karma Chameleon on, I would happily quieten down and get dressed because I liked that song, apparently, as a baby. So that's my experience with karma right there. Hope you enjoyed that stupid little story, but there you go. Right, apart from that, what actually is karma? I think it's a term that we use quite a lot. And I don't know if we actually understand the true meaning of the word. I certainly didn't until I've done my research. And so before we get into whether I believe karma is real or not, I'm just going to tell you what I found online about the word of karma, what the word karma actually means. So I'll give you the sources that I found this from as well, and it just, I guess, gives us an understanding of what karma is before we get into the finer details of things. So on webmd.com, the question is, what is the true meaning of karma? And it says, Hinduism identifies karma as the relationship between a person's mental or physical action and the consequences following that action. It also signifies the consequences of all the actions of a person in their current and previous lives, as well as the chain of cause and effect in morality. So that was one definition that I found. If you go to the Cambridge Dictionary, it's a noun. Karma is a noun. So in Hinduism and Buddhism, the sum of a person's actions in this and previous states of existence, viewed as deciding their fate in future existences. A Buddha is believed to have completely purified his karma. And then the informal meaning is good or bad luck viewed as a result from one's actions. there's something highly satisfying when karma strikes. And that's from the Cambridge Dictionary. And then on a website called medium.com, the question that I saw there was, is karma a revenge? And it just states, thus, the law of karma does not take revenge. It is a natural reaction to your action. And then I looked somewhere else and I got an AI overview. And the question was, does karma always come back? And it says, according to the concept of karma, yes, the actions you take, whether good or bad, will eventually come back to you in some form, either in this life or in a future life, meaning karma always comes back as it is based on the law of cause and effect. What you put out is what you get back. So I guess for most of you who put an absolutely yes on the poll, that this, what I've just said there, is something that you would agree with. And so now we've established the meaning behind the word, let's answer Karen's question. Do I think it's real? My opinion is, yes, I do think karma is real. I do definitely think there is something in it. And there's been many a time when I've heard myself say, well, isn't karma a bitch? So yeah, I think there is definitely something in it. And actually karma can come about for both negative and positive reasons. I think a lot of the time when we think about karma, we think about the negative aspect of it. Like when someone's done something bad, we hope they get that bad karma back to them. But I don't think we think a lot about doing good to receive good karma. I guess that's just my opinion from what I see and what sometimes I feel myself, is that I can't wait for that person to get their karma because they've been an arsehole in whatever capacity that is. So yeah, I think that actually when it comes to karma, we also need to think about the positive aspect of it as well. And we'll discuss that shortly, but let's just look at the more negative side of karma to start with. So I think when it comes to receiving negative karma, obviously none of us want to receive negative karma, but it seems that we're quite happy to see someone else receive their negative karma. And sometimes rightly so, because that can bring a sense of some kind of justice. But that only happens if we see karma happen in real time. And I think that's what many people do want to see, is that karma is happening in real time, as in we can see it happening. Whereas if we don't see karma happening in real time, in real life, then in our minds it's not happened and there's been no justice. And I think that's the word that keeps coming to my mind here, is the justice. But I do feel that whether you get karma here or in the next life, as some of those definitions I said earlier on explain, is that I don't think people get away with it. Sometimes they may have to wait until they pass the spirit and get their karma. Sometimes it might be in the next life. I know that doesn't sit well with everybody, because again, people want to see the karma happening. I guess it's just human nature that when you see injustice, and I guess I'm coming back to that word again, it almost hurts your soul, because injustice just doesn't sit right with you. It doesn't resonate with you as a person, or even resonates with your soul. If you're like me, I really hate injustice. I don't use the word hate a lot, but it really grinds my gears when I see something that isn't fair and something isn't just, and that someone's getting away with how they've behaved towards someone else, whether it be physically or emotionally, mentally or whatever. That never sits right with me, that someone's got away with something. But I think with karma, we need to understand that it's not always going to happen in front of our eyes. It's never always going to happen in this life. And actually, if you look at one of the principles of spiritualism, or one of the UK principles of spiritualism, I know they're slightly different in the US, one of the principles states that compensation and retribution hereafter for all the good and evil deeds done on earth. And that's, again, if you're not sure, if you're not aware of the principles of spiritualism, look them up online, do your research. But they're the principles which spiritualists live their lives by, really, is what the spirit world tells us, or advises us of things to live by. And that principle there, I guess, basically tells you that whether you've done good things or bad things, there is compensation for the good things, there's retribution for the bad things or evil things that have been done on this planet. Whether you get them here on Earth or whether you get them in the spirit world, we can't control that, but it is something that you could link to karma, to state that there is, and it states that there is such a thing. So as spiritualists in general, we believe that is a thing. Again, it's the law of cause and effect. So you can just look, if we just to take that one principle aside, you could look at that and say, right, well, there is karma then. Even if we don't see it, it does still happen. But again, I know that people, my feeling is that my opinion is that people would rather see karma happening in real time to bring some sense of peace or justification. So for example, let's say, God forbid, you are a victim of something really horrendous. You want to see that karma come back to that person before you leave this planet, because it may give you that sense of justice and that person hasn't got away with it. But not all the time though, because I think that there's certain karma which we don't feel is enough depending on what the person has done to you. So therefore karma can be very subjective, because we might look at certain individuals out there and think, well, actually the karma they received is not enough for the actions that they carried out in the first place. So again, I think, it can be very subjective. It's very different for everybody. But ultimately, I do think that as people, we do want to see these things, this karma coming back to people. Again, comes back to what I said earlier on. There have been many a time where I've said to myself, well, isn't karma a bitch? Or isn't payback a bitch? Because ultimately, that's what it is, isn't it? Karma is payback for what somebody has done. And so, yeah, I have heard myself say that, of course, only about people who I have felt have deserved it. But I guess it's that one thing that we want to see happen, really, for that sense of justice. But again, it's always on the negative. Because who sits there and says, well, when am I going to get my good karma? Or I hope that person gets their good karma. I know I don't necessarily say that. How many of you say that in the more positive context? It doesn't. Again, it always seems that we talk about karma in that negative context. And lastly, just to the point of the negative karma, another one of my followers, Chrissy Wheatley, had also stated that she does believe in karma, but thinks it's important that we don't revel in someone else's negative karma. And I actually think that is a good point, because it's one thing to want karma to happen, but it's another to sit there wishing it to be worse and to revel in it and all that. And I can understand why people would do that, and obviously it very much depends on the actions that were taken that's resulted in that negative karma, the varying degrees of horrible things that happen, right? But I think that, if we revel in it and really wish bad on other people, I think that would say a lot more about us than the actual person that's carried out those negative actions in the first place. So I think, it's okay to want that karma to happen. I think it's perfectly rational. I think it's perfectly normal for us as humans to want that karma, that payback, that justice, whatever you want to call it, to be given. But I think that's where we should then draw the line and go, right, they've got their karma, whatever. We don't need to think about them anymore, because they don't deserve our thoughts or our energy. They've got the karma, and let them get on with it. So again, yeah, I think that Chrissy's point is important, that we don't sit and revel in it. We just need to focus on ourselves, on our own lives, and do good things in this world. But actually, just a last point there on the negative karma. I think sometimes we need to remember that as much as we think we don't see negative karma happening or coming back to somebody, which, it can sometimes be frustrating, we actually don't know what's going on in that person's life. They may be receiving negative karma in a way which we are not seeing. So we need to remember that as well, is that person who's receiving that negative karma, and rightly so, might be receiving it in a way which we're not perceiving or that we're seeing. They could be having a shitty old time in their life, but we just don't see it. So again, that's just something to remember, that again, just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. So it's just another perspective to put on that as well. So I know we want things to be as visual as they can, so we know things are happening. It doesn't always happen that way, but it doesn't mean, again, that they're not receiving it. But let's now switch it up and let's look at the more positive side of karma, which I think, as I said before, is a side of it that we don't necessarily talk about or really consider. Because karma works both ways. It's like anything in life, this world is about duality. Everything has an opposite. So where there's negative karma, there needs to be positive and good karma as well. But I think we don't think about it, because if you're a good person, and I know all of my followers are good people, we don't do good things to receive good karma. I don't think. I think we just tend to get on with things, do what we do, be nice to people, be kind, but we're not sitting there going, "Oh, what's my good karma going to be today or this week?" It's just not a thing that we think about. I don't think, anyway. Again, we just tend to get on with life. And I also think that if you are a good person, you are kind, you are respectful, I think karma will naturally happen for you anyway. But I also think that we need to get away from this idea of that positive karma is always going to be something big and fantastical and materialistic. It's not always going to be that way, because I believe good karma can come back in many forms, whether it be new opportunities start opening up for you, whether someone's placed in your path who's going to change your life, whether it be new spiritual opportunities open up for you. So it's those things that can also be good karma. And I think sometimes we don't recognize them because we're looking for something bigger and better, rather than looking at those opportunities and things that have presented themselves that were not there before. So I think if we stop looking and focusing on the bigger stuff and just focus on those little things that are happening in your life which seem positive, take them as being your good karma as well. And I'm going to tell you a personal story now. And I don't know whether this was karma at work or not, but let me know what you think about this little personal story I'm going to give you. And well, it was going back to my early years of development, maybe 2 or 3 years in. And around that time, I was doing well in my job, and I had some money in the bank for a change, and I was doing quite well with that aspect. But it was a tough time financially for my mum, who was by herself because my stepdad had passed a few years before. And for a while around that period, I kept feeling my stepdad in my mind, kind of influencing me to help my mum out, as I would anyway, because it was coming up to Christmas time as well. And I don't know, something was just not niggling at me, but it's like that spirit connection where, any medium will know, when you keep getting an inspired thought in your head over and over again, there's a point where you've got to give into it and go, right, I'm listening, what are you trying to say to me, rather than keep pushing it aside. And I kept getting this pull to go, well, do you know what, I'm going to take some money out the bank and I'm going to give it to my mum to help her out. And it was a decent amount of money, so I did that. So I did, just to help her out over Christmas, for her to be able to buy, not that she's destitute, I don't want it to make it sound like that. It was just a tough period, right? And so I gave some extra money that I had. And it wasn't long after that I suddenly felt a shift in my mediumship. I can't really explain it. I went from being feeling a little bit unconfident and not trusting my connection to, right, I've got this. I'm suddenly having loads of opportunities come my way, and I'm being asked to do this, that, and the other on Facebook groups and things like that. So something changed, and I've often wondered, was that good karma? Was that my spirit team almost rewarding me, again, which you could call karma, rewarding me for what I did to help my mum out? So I don't know. So I've not quite decided on that, but it was just something that when I was preparing to record this episode, it was just that scenario that dropped in my head. So maybe I was meant to talk about it just to get your guys viewing it as well. And so I think that as I wrap up this episode, it just hopefully gives us all something else to think about. Again, I'm not an expert on this subject, but it's more, talking from my experience, but also just my own feelings and thoughts on it, right? So let me know what you think. Have you received any what you feel to be positive or good karma? But I certainly think that we need to think more about the positives rather than focus on the negative karma. As much as, yes, we do want to see karma come back to certain people to have that sense of justice and fairness, but also I think we need to also focus on what can we do to keep bringing the positive karma. And it's not because we're greedy and we want all the good stuff all the time, but I think if we keep in mind that what we put out there comes back to us, then hopefully we're only going to put out positive things rather than negative things, if that makes sense. So I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Let me thank Karen Jones once again for the suggestion, for the question, and also for Chrissy for her little point that she made there as well. So as always, I thank you all for listening, and if you yourself have a question you want me to answer on an episode like this, or a topic which you'd like me to talk about, then please do email me at davidhmedium@outlook.com. I shall leave it there. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you in another episode. So that's it for this episode. What do you think? I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, if you could leave me a review to tell me what you thought about it, it really does help me when it comes to creating new episodes. But also if you could share out the episodes, share out the podcast, that would really help me as well to reach more people. But if you do have a spiritual topic or a question you'd like me to talk about on another episode, please do feel free to either email me or to message me via my Facebook page, and I will take that topic and question into consideration and turn it into a podcast episode. But as always, thank you very much for listening, and I'll speak to you all soon.